It was a cold winter night in a remote village in the northern mountains of Europe. The snowstorm had fiercely settled in the last few hours, covering everything with a thick layer of snow. The wind howled, carrying ice crystals that cut the skin like sharp blades. It was as if nature itself was trying to drive everyone away from its territory. But in a small cabin, far from everything and everyone, a man and his son were preparing to spend another night in the heart of winter. The man's name was Lars, and his son, Elias, was a 12-year-old boy, shy and very attached to his father. They had lived there since Lars lost his wife in an accident when Elias was still very young. There were no neighbours nearby, and the only visitors they received were occasional trade exchanges with other villagers, who always stayed too far away to know what was really happening on the hills. That night, while the wind howled outside, Lars sat in front of the fireplace, watching the flames dance and warm the room. Elias was leaning against the window, watching the snow fall, his mind restless. "Dad, it's really strange out there, don't you think?" Elias asked, with a worried tone in his voice. "I've never seen a snowstorm this strong." Lars looked at his son with a reassuring smile, but a quick glance at the window told him that something was wrong. The storm was intensifying in a way he had never seen before. But he tried not to show concern. "Don't worry, son. It's just a storm. Nothing we can't handle." As he spoke, a strange sound came from outside. A crack, as if something large was breaking under the weight of the snow. Elias swallowed hard, his instinct telling him it wasn't normal. "Did you hear that?" Lars calmly got up, but his gaze was already uneasy. He grabbed his lantern and went to the door. "Stay here, Elias. I'll see what that was. If anything strange happens, bring the kitchen knife, understand?" Elias nodded, though he was terrified. He didn't understand what was happening, but he felt something ominous in the air. Lars opened the door and quickly walked out, disappearing into the darkness of the snow. The sound of the wind became even more shrill as Elias waited. He moved closer to the window again, his eyes trying to see through the storm. He couldn't see anything. Only the white snow mixed with the black of the night. But then, a flash of light made him jump back. It was Lars's lantern, but it was shaking in his father's hands, who was running. Elias quickly opened the door, his heart pounding in his chest. "Dad, what's happening?" Lars ran into the cabin, locking the door behind him. He was pale, breathing irregularly. "Close the door, Elias! Quickly!" he shouted, trembling. "We can't let anything in." Elias looked at him, still not understanding, but obeyed. He locked the door and looked at his father, who seemed paralyzed, in shock. "Dad, what happened out there?" Lars took a moment to compose himself. He looked at his son with wide eyes. "I saw something. I don't know what it was. Something human, but not. It was crawling through the snow, its eyes glowing. It wasn't a man, Elias. It wasn't..." The anguish in his father's voice made Elias shiver. He had never seen his father so scared. It wasn't like Lars to worry about storms or the cold. No, something was terribly wrong. What Lars had seen, what he was saying, didn't make sense. "Dad, calm down. What exactly did you see?" Elias tried to reassure his father, but his voice trembled with fear. "I don't know how to explain, son. I can't." Lars looked at the fire, which seemed like an attempt to escape what he was saying. "I was going to the barn to check if the cows were safe, and when I looked back, I saw something moving between the trees. Something that looked distorted. It didn't look human. And then I heard a scream, a horrible scream." Elias was silent for a few seconds. the fear growing inside him. And then, something got close to me. I managed to escape, but I don't know what it was, Elias. I know it wasn't flesh and bone. The snow wasn't stepped on, but I could feel something watching me. They were silent for a long moment, only listening to the wind and the storm outside. But then, something else made them freeze. A soft but distinct sound coming from outside. It was as if someone was knocking on the door. Slowly. Lars remained still. "Don't open it, Elias. No matter what happens, don't open the door." Elias felt his body tremble with fear, but he stayed quiet. The sound increased, getting louder, more insistent. Slow, heavy knocks, as if something was trying to get in. He looked at his father, who now had an expression of pure terror. The sound suddenly stopped, and then a scream, something between a moan and a howl, echoed through the night. Something distant, but close enough to freeze anyone's blood. They were being watched. "Go to the window, Elias!" "Look outside, but do it quickly," Lars ordered, his voice full of urgency. Elias hesitated, but obeyed, walking to the window with cautious steps. He lifted the curtain, and his eyes widened as he saw what was outside. It was a shadow, a humanoid figure, with eyes glowing like embers. It was standing just a few meters from the door, staring directly at him. Elias felt the terror consume his entire body. What was that? Was it the same creature Lars had seen? Or something even more sinister? "Close the curtain, Elias! Don't look anymore!" Lars shouted, now in total panic. But it was too late. The creature had noticed the movement inside the house. Before Elias could pull away from the window, the sound of a heavy knock on the door made them jump back. The creature had arrived. They were about to face something from another world. That night, Lars and Elias spent hours in silence, locked inside the cabin. The wind and the storm were now the least of their problems. They knew they weren't alone. Something was watching them. Something was waiting. And then, as if in response to the tense silence, the wind suddenly stopped. The storm ceased. The night was as calm as the grave. But the terror of Lars and Elias had only just begun. When the storm finally silenced, the sound of something crawling through the snow was heard outside, followed by a light knock on the door. Elias approached, hesitating, but something inside him told him not to open it. The wind had stopped, and the house seemed quieter than ever. When he looked through the window, he saw a hooded figure, but the image kept distorting constantly, as if made of smoke or shadows. The creature looked directly at him, its eyes glowing, but before he could react, everything disappeared in a snap, leaving behind only the snowstorm, which now seemed even denser and endless. The door remained intact, but the fear stayed. Lars and Elias never knew if the figure was really there or if their minds had tricked them. But one thing was certain. The snow would never again be just snow to them.